team from the Food Trucks Association of Canada brought us this problem of the food truck industry being quite underserved and food truck operators having a tough time in the industry. The problems that food truck operators face are that of tracking and managing all of the costs associated with operating a food truck. Food truck operators receive invoices, receipts for their costs, and also receive in different formats, and it produces a lot of management for the operators. Taking this a step further, they have a tough time aggregating this data since all they have are files. This makes it hard for them to know exactly what they are spending on and how much the real costs of their operations are without putting in a ton of extra effort to aggregate these costs into some sort of system. We have been tasked with creating an application that uses OCR to scan these receipts or invoices into a central database for the operators, which will remove a lot of overhead work they have to do. This app will aggregate their costs and show them a breakdown of where their costs are, as well as give the Food Trucks Association of Canada some tools to help them see the data in aggregate and help them with managing the costs with the food truck operators. This can be complex because we need to have an OCR process that integrates well with a categorization process, all while trying to put forth a product that makes these operators' lives easier and not more complex than it already is. Also, this is a public-facing application, so security will need to be a focus as well to ensure data is protected. Finally, if you can see these invoices right here, we will need to make sure we are identifying the right items to scan on a receipt or invoice, and not just polluting the application with every line for the user to review. This will add value as the user won't have to review every item, and this also just adds more complexity to the OCR process to make sure they are scanning only the needed items. When it comes to formulating the problem, one of the key things early on in the project was producing a project plan. The project plan allowed us to lay out all the pieces of the problem and when we needed to accomplish it. It helped us get all of it on paper at first to see all the pieces needed. Our primary artifact, though, that helped us was using Xure for prototyping, which you see here. Early on, being pretty overwhelmed with the problem and how we were going to solve it, along with not knowing web development much, how that extended to mobile, and which platform was going to be best to solve the problem, and so on. We needed a way to get a visual on what we wanted to produce, which would allow us to then focus on the other pieces and knowing what was required in a coding platform to achieve these goals. We developed some mobile prototypes early on in the project, as seen here. This proved to be pretty beneficial since we showed this to the sponsor. She realized we were maybe going too far with the mobile portion and that she wanted a slimmed down version of the app. This helped reduce a lot of the effort on our part. We also produced some web prototypes, which are very similar to the mobile piece, but really is just more information the user can get on a web client over a mobile web client. But overall, these prototypes helped our team see a solution to the problem, and all that remained was a programming problem once we reviewed with the sponsor to make sure we were all on the right path. As far as the platform, we decided we needed 3 core pieces: a database to hold the data, which MySQL was decided upon, a front end that could handle both mobile and web applications. We decided to build a React front end, which used Expo, and then we needed a back end to support the API calls and logic, which we decided to keep going with JavaScript to make it easy for the developer. We went with Node.js as a back end. This is a code walkthrough to describe 3 to 4 examples of where our team applied software engineering principles. Our focus here was on simplicity and structure. We didn't want to overcomplicate the application and make it difficult for any future developers to interpret and modify the code base. The first example would be the pages folder. Here we have isolated all of the pages that are related to navigational links on the application. By keeping these separate, we can help any future developers of the code base isolate where they want to work and know exactly where they need to go to make development changes. A second example would be how these pages extend to components. Admittingly, we wish we could have done more of this if we had more time, but these components are pieces that allow us to reuse code across the application. An example would be the button component. A lot of the components use this button. This button has a style to it. What is beneficial about this is that if there was ever a change to the style of the application, the button could be changed and it would update in multiple areas across the app since we reuse the component. A third example of reusability in less code is how we have used the utils folder within the front end. We don't have all of the API calls in here, but there are a good portion. This allows for a single API request to be isolated in a file and reused again across the app. That way, if something changes about the structure, it will impact all the requests that needed across the app. We also don't have to write as much code since the core of the API is written in one location. And here's the example of an API request. Gets the token, sends the token with the request, and just makes it very easy for the developer. And then finally, on the back end, we have moved some of the logic from the server to the API folder. This API folder holds separate files for deletes, gets, posts, and puts. This allows a developer again to navigate to the appropriate file to make any modifications or find where they need to go to make additional changes to the API. As we can see, we can go through here and see how they are all delete requests, get requests, post requests, and then put requests. And then also to take it a step further, we move the logic to not just be contained in the API request, but into files that are static classes. These all have pretty good names that are either related to functionality on the front end, database, tables, and our logic isn't really repetitive, so they all have very good descriptions and are isolated within classes appropriately. And then finally, another example is our get process, which is hard to see here, but to ensure quality, we didn't allow pushing to dev or main without a review. We also created branches for all user stories and task branches and constantly updated our branches as dev updated. Developers had to go through a review process to complete a task, and then the Git master would handle submitting the completed reviewed user story into dev. This is an application walkthrough. We'll start off with the login page. We will log in as an admin to start. From here, we'll start in the settings page. All users have the ability to update their first name, last name, email, or change a password. Admins are able to update SMTP server settings. This is primarily used to send emails when a user has forgotten the password. This could be extended to other services though. One of the main functions of the admin will be to sign up users. This would normally probably be on the public facing side of the app, but the admins wanted more control of who could sign up at this point in time. So now I will demonstrate how that works. And if we go to the user management page, you'll see that I'm now a user. Admins can disable users or re-enable them. This will prevent them from signing into the app. And one of the main things for an admin is a categorization page. This allows them to see all the imported information from the OCR process across all food trucks. How this is helpful is when they look at a single item, they can see different regions and how the cost is different per region, and maybe if it's beneficial, they could provide information to different food truck operators, showing them where better prices are for items. They can also filter by certain regions. They can filter by pending or approved documents. They can also export to Excel. from here, they can see information on the food truck as well as regions and everything we're seeing already. They have the ability to dig in further on the details of a category. And that basically covers the admin portion. So now let's log in as a typical food truck operator. And then initially we were brought to the home page where we can see information on imported documents, monthly expenses, and expensed items. You'll notice in the navigation it's slightly different than the admin. The admin didn't need all the functionality that a user needs. Let's start with the settings page. They have the same ability to update their name, but they can also add categories. And then they can also remove them. And then on the units page, they can add different units of measure for their items. They can add different conversions between these units of measure, and then they can add special conversions here. Special conversion might be something that's normal, not normally standard or standard known. Let's go through the import process. So we can pick a file, give it a name, and upload it. And if we go to the review page, we'll see this upload. We can click into it to get the details. And then if we want to update it, we can show you how the functionality works. We can apply a category, save it, and then let's just mark this one as approved. And then if we go through the import process again, and if we go to review, if we click this document, we will then see it brought in the information from the last time that description was scanned and the categories that associated with it. This will help the food truck operators with automation as they enter more receipts, and as those items become more common, they will be able to get information from the database already and prevent them from entering information. So their primary focus will probably be updating information for items the first time they're scanned through. Another piece for the operator is the menu page where they can create ingredients and then also create recipes of ingredients. And from here they can add different recipes to the ingredient list. And then they can go to the margin calc page and select a menu item. This uses recursion, so if recipes were included in recipes, it would recursively find all of the base ingredients and list them here. And they can do calculations based off this. So if they wanted to see what margin they would be making, they could calculate it. They could also say, what sell price do I need to sell it at if I want to make a 40% margin? Or they could also do it the opposite. If they're like, we're going to sell this for 25, I want to make a 40% margin, what does my cost need to be? And then on the user side, another strong piece for them to use is a categorization page as well, but it's just isolated to their own data. And they can do things like converting their units of measure. And then if something doesn't have a conversion, it will give them an alert. But they have the same functionality to export to Excel. They can filter by certain documents or items. And that covers the web portion of this app. Now I want to demonstrate the mobile piece. I'm already logged in as the same user here. And from here, they can get some quick stats on their app as far as things to approve. They can see different items and costs related to them. And the main piece of this is the import process. And from here, we can take a photo, give it a name, and then we'll bring this to the side and we will look at what was uploaded.
And here's the mobile upload. And from here, they can go through the same process again and see the items in the categorization page. And that covers the mobile and the web application. Thank you.